Picture the most expensive, most exclusive cars of the 1950s sitting in your garage right now. Not American iron this time, British machines. Hand-built jewels of aluminum, ash, walnut, and Connolly leather that didn't just define luxury, they defined an empire's idea of itself. Today we're counting down the 10 most expensive British classic cars of that decade. Cars so rare that only a handful of dukes, film stars, and heads of state ever sat behind the wheel, and today worth genuine fortunes. Here's the part most people forget. While these cars were being built, Britain itself was still living under rationing. Petrol was scarce. Sugar, meat, and even sweets stayed on the ration into the mid-1950s, and the government's purchase tax could very nearly double the price of a luxury car. The directive from government was blunt: export or die. These were built first and foremost to be sold abroad, to earn the dollars a broke nation desperately needed. Which means owning one of these in Britain during those gray post-war years wasn't just wealth, it was close to defiance. If you're into classic cars, coach-built elegance, and the whisper of a straight-six engine, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Number 10. 1953 Aston Martin DB2/4. In 1953, one British car felt less like transport and more like a tailored suit with an engine attached. The Aston Martin DB2/4. It combined the manners of a gentleman's car with the heart of a racer, built for a man who wanted to drive himself quickly without ever looking like he was trying. The DB carried the initials of David Brown, the industrialist who bought a near-bankrupt Aston Martin for a few £1,000s on little more than a vision. From the first glance, the DB2/4 made that vision clear: a hatchback-style tailgate, and just enough room in the back for two small passengers. Under the bonnet sat a 2.6-liter, later 3.0-liter, twin-cam straight-six, breathing through twin SU carburetors and producing around 140 horsepower. That figure sounds modest today, but wrapped in hand-formed aluminum bodywork this light, it was enough to embarrass cars twice its size on a winding road. As for value, in 1953, an Aston Martin DB2/4 cost around £2,700. With purchase tax piled on top, that was the price of a comfortable house. Adjusted for inflation, you're looking at the better part of £80,000 today. A good example now changes hands at auction for well into six figures, bought by collectors as the opening chapter of the legend that would eventually put James Bond behind the wheel. Number 9. 1954 Bristol 405. If you've never heard of Bristol, that's almost the point. This was a car company born out of an aircraft factory. When peace arrived, those aircraft engineers turned to building some of the most quietly perfect motor cars in Britain and selling them to almost nobody. The 1954 Bristol 405 was their masterpiece of restraint, a four-door saloon shaped so carefully in the wind tunnel that it seemed to slip through the air rather than push against it. To buy a Bristol, you went to the factory in Filton, near the runways, and were treated less like a customer and more like a member of a private club. Under the bonnet sat a 2.0-liter straight-six, a design derived from pre-war BMW engineering, acquired as war reparations, and refined with aircraft-grade precision, producing around 105 horsepower. The price reflected exactly that approach. In 1954, a Bristol 405 cost around £3,300, more than many far flashier cars, and adjusted for inflation, that's comfortably over £90,000 today. Bristol built only a handful of cars a year, on purpose, which is exactly why the people who know. Number 8. 1957 Aston Martin DB Mark III. Here's one for anyone who assumes the DB5 was Bond's first Aston Martin. In Ian Fleming's original Goldfinger novel, the car Bond actually drove wasn't the DB5. It was this one, the DB Mark III. By 1957, David Brown's Aston Martin had refined the formula into something close to perfect. The Mark III introduced a new grille, that low, curved opening that would define every Aston Martin for the next 60 years. It was the moment the brand found its face, and it backed up the looks with real substance, including front disc brakes, a rarity at the time, so the car could finally stop as fast as it could go. As for value, the DB Mark III cost around £3,000 in 1957, which adjusted for inflation, lands near £85,000 today. That sticker price barely hints at what these now command. With the Bond connection and only a few hundred of certain variants ever built, a genuine Mark III is a blue-chip collector's piece, regularly crossing the £200,000 mark and beyond. It was power dressed as restraint, the kind of car a secret agent would choose precisely because it didn't shout. Number 7. 1950 Jaguar Mark 7. If there's one British car that genuinely frightened American manufacturers on their own turf, it was this one. The Jaguar Mark 7 proved you could get Rolls-Royce grace at a fraction of the Rolls-Royce price and still leave most things behind at the traffic lights. When the Mark 7 arrived, it caused a sensation. A vast, sumptuous saloon with flowing curves and chrome, a walnut dashboard, and enough leather to upholster a gentleman's club. But it wasn't soft. Beneath that elegant skin sat Jaguar's legendary 3.4-liter XK twin-cam straight-six, the same engine family that powered Jaguar's Le Mans race cars, producing around 160 horsepower. This was a luxury saloon that could top 100 miles per hour, and it backed up the claim by famously winning the brutal Monte Carlo rally outright. Jaguar's founder, William Lyons, had a genius for one thing above all: value. The Mark 7 looked like it cost a fortune, and didn't. In 1950, it was priced at around £1,000 before tax, rising to roughly £1,700 with purchase tax loaded on, which made it astonishingly cheap for what it offered. Adjusted for inflation, that's around £55,000 today for a car that genuinely shamed machines costing 3 times as much. Number 6. 1953 Alvis TC21/100 Grey Lady. Some cars become legends by shouting. This one became a legend by whispering. The Alvis TC21/100, nicknamed the Grey Lady, was perhaps the most understated quick car of its entire decade, built for a man with real money and absolutely no desire to advertise it. Alvis was an old, proud Coventry name, a maker of fine cars and aero engines, and the Grey Lady was its quiet triumph. The 100 in the name was a promise. It could reach 100 miles per hour and cruise comfortably at that speed, which in 1953 marked a genuinely serious motor car. Under the bonnet was a smooth 3.0-liter straight-six producing around 100 horsepower, mated to a precise gearbox and a chassis that flattered the driver. This was effortless, long-legged motoring, the kind that ate up a Sunday drive through the countryside and left you wanting more. In 1953, the Grey Lady cost around £2,800. Adjusted for inflation, that's near £80,000 today. For that money, you didn't get fins or gold trim. You got engineering, discretion, and the quiet confidence of a car built by people who genuinely cared about the details. Number 5. 1956 Daimler DK400 Limousine. Before Rolls-Royce became the default carriage of British royalty, another name held the royal warrant for decades: Daimler. In the mid-1950s, the grandest Daimler of all was the towering DK400 limousine, a car of state, built not to be driven, but to be driven in. Long, stately, and impossibly formal, the DK400 carried princes, prime ministers, and visiting heads of state through cheering crowds. Its rear compartment was a private drawing room on wheels, deep seats, fold-down occasional chairs, a division separating master from chauffeur, and craftsmanship in every inch of wood and hide. Power came from a large 4.6-liter straight-six, smooth and unhurried, paired with Daimler's signature pre-selector gearbox and fluid flywheel transmission, a system so gentle it seemed to think for you. This car didn't accelerate, it gathered itself and moved. The price put it firmly among the elite. A coach-built DK400 could cost well over £3,000, and considerably more depending on bespoke bodywork specification, placing it on par with the grandest cars in the land. Adjusted for inflation, you're talking 6 figures today. Though buyers weren't really purchasing a car so much as ceremony, the right to arrive in the manner of royalty, even if you weren't royal at all. Number 4. 1955 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. Now we arrive at the name that needs no introduction: Rolls-Royce. 2 words that, for the whole world, simply mean the best. And in 1955, the best meant the Silver Cloud, the car that defined automotive aristocracy for a generation. Its silhouette, with that confident grille standing proud like a Greek temple, those flowing haunches and endless bonnet, was the very image of success. To pull up in a Silver Cloud was to announce, without saying a word, that you had arrived in every sense. The engineering matched the image. Beneath that vast bonnet sat a 4.9-liter straight-six of legendary smoothness. Here's a detail that tells you everything about Rolls-Royce. When journalists asked how much power it produced, the company famously refused to answer. The official figure was simply adequate, the arrogance of true confidence. They didn't need numbers. The car spoke for itself, gliding down the road in near silence, so refined that the loudest sound at speed was said to be the ticking of the dashboard clock. Inside, it was a moving country house, trimmed in West of England cloth or the finest Connolly hide. Burr walnut veneers were cut from a single tree so the grain matched perfectly across the dashboard, and deep lamb's wool rugs lay underfoot. As for the price, the Silver Cloud cost around £4,700 in 1955, an absolute fortune, more than several houses. Adjusted for inflation, that's well over £130,000 today. Number 3. 1957 Jaguar XKSS. If the Silver Cloud was about quiet perfection, this next car was about something far more dangerous. The 1957 Jaguar XKSS is, without exaggeration, one of the rarest and most valuable British cars ever built, and the story of how it came to exist, and very nearly didn't, is almost unbelievable. Jaguar had dominated Le Mans with its fearsome D-Type race car, but when the company stepped back from racing, it was left with a number of unsold competition chassis. Someone had a bold idea. Take those pure racing cars, add a passenger door, a folding windscreen, a thin little roof, and a strip of chrome bumper, then sell them to wealthy gentlemen as road cars. The result was the XKSS, essentially a Le Mans racer with number plates. At its heart was a 3.4-liter XK straight six in full race tune, producing around 250 horsepower in a car that weighed almost nothing. It could reach 60 miles per hour in well under 6 seconds and storm on toward 145 miles per hour. But here's where the legend turns tragic. Jaguar had planned to build a full run of these cars, then in February 1957, a catastrophic fire swept through the Coventry factory and destroyed several of them before completion. In the end, only 16 genuine XKS cars ever left the factory. One of them was owned by actor Steve McQueen, who adored it. The original price was a few £1,000s. Today, those 16 survivors are among the most coveted cars on the planet. When one comes up for sale, it doesn't sell for hundreds of thousands, it sells for millions, with figures north of £10 million. Number 2. 1952 Bentley R-Type Continental. At the moment of its birth, this next car could make an extraordinary claim. The 1952 Bentley R-Type Continental was, quite simply, the fastest four-seater car in the entire world, and it happened to be one of the most beautiful objects ever to wear four wheels. By the 1950s, Bentley had become the sporting sister to Rolls-Royce, the car for a man who had a Rolls-Royce's money, but a racing driver's soul. The Continental was its ultimate expression. Its flowing fastback body, crafted by the great coach builder H.J. Mulliner, was shaped in the wind tunnel and formed in lightweight aluminum. Even the bumpers were drilled to save weight. Every line of it was drawn for speed, and the result is still considered one of the most graceful shapes in motoring history. Beneath that long bonnet sat a 4.6-liter straight six, later enlarged to 4.9 liters. Like its Rolls-Royce cousin, Bentley declined to quote a horsepower figure, calling it merely sufficient. In this case, sufficient meant the ability to cruise all day at over 100 miles per hour and touch nearly 120 miles per hour, a genuinely astonishing capability for a luxurious four-seater in 1952. And the price? The R-Type Continental cost around £6,900, roughly double the price of a standard Bentley, and one of the most expensive production cars money could buy anywhere in the world. Adjusted for inflation, that's around £200,000 today. And a genuine Mulliner-bodied example now commands many times that at auction, often pushing well past £500,000. Only around 200 were ever built. This was the ultimate grand tourer, the car you drove across a continent in a single, effortless, supremely elegant sweep. Number 1. 1950 Rolls-Royce Phantom IV. We've covered the most expensive, the rarest, and the fastest. But the final car on this list belongs to a category entirely its own, because you could not buy it. No amount of money was enough. To own a Rolls-Royce Phantom 4, you had to be royalty or a head of state. Full stop. When Rolls-Royce set out to build the ultimate motor car for the world's most exalted individuals, it created something it had never built before and would never build again for a passenger car. A magnificent 5.7-liter straight-eight engine, 8 cylinders and a line of such smoothness that the car seemed to move by will alone. True to form, Rolls-Royce never quoted its power output. It didn't need to. The very first Phantom 4 was delivered to Princess Elizabeth, the future queen, and her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh. From there, the tiny number of cars built went only to kings, queens, sheikhs, and presidents. Each one was a unique creation, bodied by the finest coach builders in the land, Mulliner, Hooper, and Park Ward, built to the exact and private wishes of its royal owner. Limousines, landaulettes, state cars, no two alike. How many were built across the entire production run? Just 18. 18 cars, total, for the entire world. Rarer than almost any car in history. As for value, these almost never come up for sale, because royal households simply don't sell them. But when one does, it commands a sum that makes every other car on this list look like pocket change. Several £1,000,000 for a genuine piece of living history. This wasn't a car you commanded. It was a car that commanded for you. So there you have it, 10 of the most expensive and exclusive British cars of the 1950s. From the gentleman's Aston Martin to a car built only for crowned heads, all forged in a nation that had almost nothing yet still found a way to build some of the most beautiful objects the world had ever seen. Which of these would earn a place in your dream garage? The fire-scarred Jaguar XKSS, worth more than a house 10 times over? The Bentley Continental, sweeping across Europe in a single elegant breath? Or the untouchable Phantom 4, built for a queen? Tell me in the comments, maybe you saw one of these gliding through your town as a child, or someone in your family even owned one. Subscribe for more deep dives into the cars that built Britain's reputation for craftsmanship.